On April 14th, 1939, a child named Doug was born. As that child approached adulthood, he would stop going by Doug. He would grow up to become Ox Baker, a towering figure in professional wrestling. With his bald head, bushy mustache, and imposing stature, Baker was an unforgettable personality whose career spanned several decades. If you only saw him on television, Ox was a terrifying individual. Eyebrows that looked like horns, and a mustache that was longer than most men's beards framed the face of one of the most menacing-looking wrestlers to ever walk. But the more you study him, the more you see that there's a lot more to the guy than a look.
Because of my size, you have to understand that at 14, I was 5'9", maybe 220 pounds. But at 15, I was 6'2", 310 pounds. Wow. So I was bigger than the average guy. But I had found out that all the little guys, even to this day, one of the reasons that you'll find me, I never was a heavy drinker, never was a heavy smoker. I walked away from a lot of fights, even though I knew I could whip the guy, but a lot of times I'd never seen any reason. So anyway, because of the Bill situation as being married, I started into wrestling, and what happened, the promoter said, you know, as big as you are, I can't really put you over my main eventers because they wouldn't allow that. So they asked me to come up with some gimmick where I was a little silly. I started actually at 64, by 65 I changed over to the Ox gimmick where I was just from the farm, and I discovered, which I've had for 40 some years, that automatically I was a great talker on the tube. I got on the tube and I just said, Ma don't want me to get worked up, she just wants me to squeeze the snot out of these guys and come home, but don't get angry at the referee and don't push the fans. And one of the things I did for 40 years, never touched the fan. As you know, I had quite a few stitches put in my head from a couple riots. Even then, the fans that hit me, I didn't hit back because I felt that I was the one working them up. Why should I be mad at them? Now, I know a lot of guys said, hey, I beat a couple 150 pounders up and 110 pounders. I never wanted that reputation either. I just wanted to know that any length that I had to do, I wanted to be Ox Baker, just one of the boys. And that was my start of my success in the business, because all Ox Baker ever wanted to do was be one of the boys.
Ox Baker's wrestling career began in the early 1960s. It wasn't long before he became one of the most feared villains in the business. Standing 6 feet, 5 inches tall, and weighing over 300 pounds, he used his size to intimidate. He would tell people his eyebrows and mustache were insured like all the big stars of the time would take out insurance policies on their physical features, and seemed like a much bigger deal than other wrestlers just from the aura he was able to give off before he even stepped between the ropes.
Where I got my idea about the mustache. You've seen Ox Baker?
Yes.
That mustache he had? And he used to do this, and he'd grab it like this. And when I was really, really green, this is when I first started in the business, Ox Baker, people used to run from him. And he was left-handed too, when he said, and he'd grab his hand like this, like he's gonna punch him. Oh my God. And he was a scary guy.
Once the bell rang, Baker's signature move, the Heart Punch, became legendary and notorious.
Yeah, what makes you think that you can...
John, looks like John may be hurt here.
Though the Heart Punch was just a wrestling maneuver, 2 wrestlers, Alberto Torres and Ray Gunkel, tragically passed away shortly after their matches with Baker. Those events would shape a lot of the public view of how Ox was seen by the masses. Many fans would look at these incidents and think Ox a killer, and they would never forgive him.
Twice in the last 20 years I've hit people and they died in the ring.
There's Ox Baker Cleveland Riot on YouTube.
Maybe Ernie Ladd riot. Maybe.
Ernie Ladd, Cleveland riot. But the fucking heart punches that Ox was hitting Ernie with upon, close inspection. But Ernie is down. He's bleeding already. And every time Ox hits him, he quivers. He's selling it. He's quivering. And there's Johnny Powers there looking out for people already. And as a matter of fact, I'd asked Ernie, one of the first things when I met him, I asked him about that. I said, please tell me what you can tell me. And the deal was, it wasn't even the finish of a match. It was earlier in the night. This was not even the main event, right? A lot of people think, oh my God, they went crazy in the main event. No, it was an angle where somebody had a match and somehow Johnny Powers had turned, right? And joined Ox Baker against Ernie Ladd.
Yes.
And so, holy fuck, the people were hot. And Ernie said, as he was laying there, he saw it and he felt it. It was going too far. And he looked up and he said, Ox, the natives are getting restless. And Ox said, just a little more heat. Just a little more heat, Ernie. He hit him with another heart punch and another heart punch. And Ernie sees the first guy pick up a fucking chair. Ox, the natives are getting restless. Leave with your heat. And Ox said, just a little more heat. Just a little more heat. And he hits him with another heart punch, and that's when the first chair flies over the top rope. And that's when you see Ox on the tape. He starts looking around, and Johnny Powers is already like, oh, wait a minute. And then they're talking to each other, and Ernie's laying there. He's making sure he's not getting any of the fucking chairs landing on his head, but he's not exposing that he's all right. And he was laying there like, I told you the natives were getting restless. And then people start coming in the ring, and the cops have their sticks out, and they're hammering people. And you see something different every time. It's like looking at a mosaic. And on this 16 millimeter film transfer, it's not, high def anyway. But one time you'll look down at one corner of the ring, and there's a cop with mace spraying in between the ring post and the turnbuckles to the other side of the ring to blind a guy that's trying to climb in with a chair. And here comes some nightsticks on the other side, and the chairs are flying in the ring, and the ring announcer, I don't know if it was Bob Finnegan or no, goddamn, I used to know his name, but he's a skinny guy in a fucking tuxedo. And he's looking around and trying to block chairs with his hands. A guy gets in the ring and then realizes he's in the ring in the middle of this chaos and doesn't know what to do, so he just stands there. And the wrestlers don't want to rush him because if they fucking hit this guy, then 25 more are going to come. And it's chaos. And then finally, and they're dragging people out. And finally, you see the baby faces hit the ring. And that was the old deal where you fight the heels back. If the baby faces jump on the heels and are covering them up but punching them, then both of you together make your way to the back. And the theory is that the fans will not attack the heels because the baby face is already doing it for them, and they're not going to try to hit the baby face. This did not exactly bear fruit that night also, because fucking Powers saw a fucking opening and took it, and off he runs doing a 40-yard dash, right? But Ox tries to run, and he's so fucking big, and he's got nobody on him. They're kicking, and they're throwing shit, and they're punching at him, and finally he runs, and the arena, I think, is set up for hockey or whatever, because they don't go like down the aisleway back to the locker room. They run through the only open area they see, and it's like the plexiglass wall, right? And they've got to hop over a fucking thing to get to the back of the hallway of the arena or whatever. And right as Ox goes up and he's jumping up over the thing, this fucking fan's coming with a chair. And the last shot you see before the fucking film clip ends is the fan swings the fucking chair, boom, and crowns Ox right on the back of the head, and boom, and he goes over the thing and it goes dark. And he had that fucking scar, well, for the rest of his life, obviously, but it added to the appearance, but it looked like he'd had a goddamn lobotomy on the back of his fucking head when he turned around.
And you know what a fan did, ladies? You see the back of my head? A fan drove a chair in the back of my head. They don't believe in wrestling, but he drove a chair in the back of my head. I laid on that table. I told the doctor. He couldn't believe it. I said, don't give me any Novocaine. I want to feel that needle sewing my head up. That's how tough I am. Because I left Big Early Lad laying in the rain, and then that guy hit me with a chair. If he was here right now, I would drive the skirt punch into his body too. So my head, no, Novocaine, I don't want it. And the next day, when I got on TV, I told the guy I would wrestle. The first thing I want you to do, there's a couple of old women in the front row. I know they're chewing snuff, but I don't care. I want you to slap me in the back of the head and break them stitches open, because I want to pour blood all over their head, all over their face. I want them to see, because folks, whether you believe wrestling or not, two guys didn't make it home. Ernie Ladd went down. The old pro, he went down, Scott. I almost can't do that. I'm sorry, but he went down too, folks. That was in Cleveland, Ohio, and they called it the most vicious riot.
This is a unique place for a bad guy in pro wrestling to be. The fans genuinely thought that those in the ring with Ox were in danger of losing their lives, and it added a dimension of heat to the matches that were simply not there for the other wrestlers. Fans' hate of Baker would be easy to understand at the time, but looking back on things and how many people would attempt to take shots at Ox over the years, the big man was a marked man to fans, and it had to be stressful. While both deaths were later attributed to pre-existing medical conditions, Baker leaned into the public's perception that his move was deadly. Though it may have been ill-advised, he became a master of generating heat from the crowd, boasting that he had killed his opponents. A bold move in an era where the fans were known to genuinely seek revenge on the bad guy wrestlers. Even though most of the success he had was at a regional level, he appeared in major wrestling organizations as well, including the AWA, NWA, and WWF. His feuds with stars like Dusty Rhodes and The Sheik helped cement his legacy as one of wrestling's premier villains.
Well, I walked into Florida, and what had happened was they got a big fat guy called the American Dream. If you want to know, he knew less about wrestling than I did. But he was the big star, and they had the man there called Eddie Graham. He heard me interview one time. He said, "You're going to be my main event." He said, "Who I'm going to wrestle?" Dusty Rhodes. I said, "Is that right?" I said, "Well, you know I can't get beat down here in Florida." He said, "All right, well, you won't." 12 weeks went by, and I said, "What are we doing, Eddie?" He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "We went 12 weeks. I went 45 minutes every night. I'm tired." He said, "Did you lose a match?" I said, "I haven't lost one yet." He said, "Well, I kept my word to you." But me and Dusty Rhodes, it was like Dusty Rhodes had actually been in the, people get tired of wrestlers real fast. They see someone in the main event for 10 times. They want to see somebody else. They want that belt change. Vince changes the belts around. You never know who the champion is. But in them days, if you owned the territory, you kept the belt, right? Well, Dusty Rhodes had the belt about 7 years. He actually wanted to leave Florida. And like my super brain, I went down and bought a giant bus ticket. I said, "Dusty Rhodes, Florida belongs there. Here's a bus ticket. Either come out and get an ass beaten or get out of Florida. Here's the bus ticket." So Dusty Rhodes stayed night after night. We went 30, 40, 45 minutes.
His iconic look was so recognizable that even non-wrestling fans took notice, and it would lead to a memorable appearance in the film The Big Brawl with Jackie Chan, where he played himself. This role was fine, but the one that would really cement him in the minds of moviegoers would be his role in Escape from New York, where he played a menacing gladiator battling Kurt Russell. His imposing presence in the film further extended his appeal beyond wrestling audiences, and the casting put him into the running with guys like Terry Funk and Tex Cobb, who had made their way into acting simply from looking like badasses.
Bob, is going to be Douglas Baker. Come on down. You're the next contestant on The Prize is Right.
Did anyone think this monster heel should not have been on the show?
No. Well, when he was on the show, I think it was after his run anyway. I think Ox had more or less retired from the active ring work anyway.
Douglas, I sure hope you're in a good mood today.
I'm in a great mood, Bob.
What does it say there? Big, mean, and ugly. What does it say on your bag?
My name Ox.
Ox, what do you do?
I'm a professional wrestler, sir.
So yeah, he wasn't looked at in a bad way. He said, "Hey, you see Ox on Price is Right?"
I beat him up,
I bet.
especially if I don't win.
That's what I'm thinking.
I think he did pretty good. I've saw the show several times.
You're a winner.
Known for his deep, booming voice and theatrical style, Baker's promos were legendary.
Oh, you think you can have a couple of whiskeys, get low down drunk, and start up that old heap of yours and go out on the road? Well, Ox Baker's gonna be out during the highway, and if I catch any of you goofs behind the wheel going 1 mile over the speed limit, you're gonna pray that the cops come and put you in jail, that I'll yank you out of your car. You better drink and stay at home. Don't get in them cars, and don't let Ox Baker catch you behind the wheel drunk.
Imagine that voice threatening to, I don't know, cook up your pet and serve it to you. Crazy, right? It would be, except that's a promo he cut, and with all the conviction in the world. Fans always reacted to Baker. One thing running counter to this would be that in Baker's real life, how much he contributed towards animals and pets. His friends have remarked over the years that Baker, who once threatened to cook a pet in a promo, was in reality an avid pet lover. He often donated to animal shelters and even rescued stray cats and dogs during his travels.
You know, you wonder why I'm sitting out here today with my 2 dogs here. You know, the wrestlers, they got to do good in this world, and I'm going to do some good. I'm going to have my dogs there because we want to do something that day. We want to help them dogs in the shelter. So many shelters you hear about putting the dogs to sleep. We're tired of that. We don't want that. In Estiville shelter, we don't do that. We take care of the dogs.
This resulted in him having a home full of various critters. These elements of his personality show how easy it is to get someone's true nature wrong when your opinion is entirely based on their roles on television. But to Ox's credit, that role he had was a very effective one. Even if the fans began to think that other acts were phony in wrestling, Ox Baker was able to keep his aura a bit longer than most in those days. A lot of wrestlers thought that the action figures and such of the time were making wrestling into kid stuff, and many in the industry looked down on the WWF and bigger promotions selling the action figures. Whether or not this was Baker's belief, we didn't get a figure of him, meaning kids growing up in the time period wouldn't be able to get their hands on an Ox Baker figure to beat up the good guys with. However, this would be remedied in the later years, as those who make and collect figures have managed to bring him to the toy shelves. Just this year, KWK Heroes have brought a new figure out of Ox Baker, and it looks great. Fits right in with the rest of a retro toy collection. I don't have a giant collection of figures myself, but I was an Ox Baker fan, and like I said before, we didn't get one growing up. So I'm picking one up for the wall, going to put it somewhere near my Escape from LA VHS. As time would keep chugging forward, Baker became an old-timer, and as he got older, he was a little more open to letting people see he wasn't quite a pet-cooking madman anymore. Baker became known for a quirky sense of humor and love of pranks.
I've got a giant cake there Saturday night. It's because you're my fan. And I love each and every. Even the ugly ones I like. We're gonna cut some cake. Sorry to interrupt you. Ugly ones? Well, the fat ones, not the ugly ones. The fat. Get away from me, Tony Atlas. Don't say hello to me. Don't try to rub my head. Just stay away. and you won't get hurt. I love my people out there. I wave to them, you know. They got some ugly fat women who should be paid for 2 seats instead of 1, but I never make fun of them.
He once convinced a rookie wrestler that all veterans carried bricks in their bags for self-defense, prompting the rookie to lug around an actual brick for months. He would challenge young wrestlers to arm wrestling matches, and if they seemed like they may win, he'd flip the table over. He was constantly yelling, but in a fun old man kind of way. And as he got older, you would have a hard time finding too many people who didn't enjoy messing around with Ox. Something that might surprise you about the big man is that Ox Baker had a surprising passion for cooking, and even published a cookbook, the Ox Baker Cookbook, a tribute to fallen warriors, which showcased his love for food and the stories he had from traveling the roads with other wrestlers.
When did you become a cook? Well, when did this start?
Well, what happened when I was over in New Zealand, the matches always lasted till 10:15. Well, they closed the restaurants up at 9 o'clock. So a lot of times when we finished up with the matches, there was nowhere to go to eat. So what we do, we buy food ahead of time and take it to our motel, because they always had a stove in every motel that you... And at first it was like this guy would make a stew, this guy would make a hash, I would make my scrambled eggs, I'd make... And pretty soon it got so every night I was the designated cook. I like that because a lot of times we take in $35, I'd only spend $28 for the food, and the other $7 I'd stick in my pocket. So I was making a little money, and my food was always well received, because when you try to feed 6 or 8 guys, you have to get enough stuff where everybody gets fed well. And of course, I always told them, if you want a beverage on the side, that's up to you. But if you want a wine, give me some money for wine. And I was in New Zealand for 6 months, and I went over to Australia, and some of the guys heard me about that. The restaurants were open, but they said, Ox, we still like your kind of cooking. And like the Giant, he would love my salmon patties. I'd make him a 3-pound salmon patties for the Giant, and he'd sit up there and we'd play cribbage, and he'd eat salmon patties, because he always said, Ox, don't ask for any of my salmon patty. I got a sandwich for you. You know? So that's how I got to it. It was just almost out of necessary, and I got good at it, and I like to do it. And over the years, like if you scramble eggs 50 times, they're a lot better the 50th time than the first time, right? And maybe something is lousy the first time, you change it, you add seasoning, because everybody has something different. Like at the table, I always had 4 or 5 different mustard, ketchup, this kind of sauce, because everybody eats different. The book was created because in my lifetime, I have seen between 150 to 270. They're legend in the business, but they're all dead now. So the books that I write about, all the guys that I wrestled, they passed on. I don't want the wrestling fans to ever forget these guys.
Look, Ox even markets his own aprons. Chef Ox says, shut up and eat.
Keep in mind, we said he had a passion for cooking. We didn't say it was especially good. The cookbook, holding recipes as Heart Punch Chili, would also house some of the most inedible sounding dishes one had ever read. However, it did include the recipes for foods he would cook for the other wrestlers when they visited him, or when he simply pulled out his handy hot plate out of his wrestling bag. Because that's a thing that he carried in his wrestling bag. One of the recipes included was a 3.5-pound salmon patty he would make for Andre the Giant, just in case you have a gargantuan showing up for dinner anytime soon, you know. As far as wrestling books go, it isn't the worst wrestler book to pick up by any stretch of the imagination. Baker's culinary endeavors revealed a lighter, more approachable side of the fearsome wrestler. He often made appearances on local TV and radio shows, demonstrating his cooking skills and delighting audiences. Fans were treated to anecdotes from his wrestling days while he whipped up dishes that may or may not be worse for their insides than one of Ox's heart punches. His cooking became another avenue for Baker to connect with his fans after he got too old to compete. You could tell that he truly enjoyed it. One of the funnier situations with Ox's cooking would be a promotional contest where a lucky fan won a dinner with Ox Baker himself. Far from the fearsome figure seen in the ring, Baker charmed his dinner guests with stories from his wrestling days, even donning his apron to prepare a meal for them. The winner was treated to an unseasoned steak and some beans. The fan later recounted the experience, calling it both surreal and delightful, as Baker switched seamlessly between shouting that the guy didn't know good food when he saw it and being a fun dinner host. He would get to prepare his heart-punched chili on local TV stations where he kept his legend alive. Viewers were always drawn to his energy, and his cookbook became a cult favorite among wrestling fans and food enthusiasts alike. Later in life, Ox would take on the role of veteran and elder statesman in his appearance for wrestling companies, including a stint for CZW, where even the rowdy fans of the 2000 CZW audience remembered the Ox. He would cut a promo at the beginning of the show, putting over the talent and calling on the end for DJ Hyde that night in the main event. When the time came to build the cage, you could see Ox in the background going back and forth to the fans. I was curious as to why, so I began searching. It turns out that as the cage was being made, Ox was selling tickets to a raffle for a football autographed by him that they could pick up at the end of the show. When the time came and the main event was over, the fans who bought the raffle tickets would go up to the table where Ox would let them know that there was no raffle, but he signed a picture for everyone who bought a ticket. With the big crowd around his table, he even moved some merchandise during the ending of the show. While Baker thrived on his villainous image, those who knew him personally often spoke of him being more of a prankster and fun-loving kind of guy. He was a mentor to younger wrestlers, offering advice on how to connect with audiences and build their characters. This lesson on how to move merchandise was just one of those examples.
You're not Baker's Corner. You're already a win. But if you listen to me, you'll get your hand raised.
Despite his fearsome appearance, Baker was known to visit children's hospitals and charity events, always taking time to bring smiles to the fans' faces. It probably wasn't quite the experience kids would get when John Cena would show up for the Make-A-Wish events, as Ox kinda looked like the devil, but look, he made the time anyway and really just enjoyed entertaining people as a villain. He would take part in several independent films, including My Smorgasbord with Ox, and stay active even as he grew older. Ox would even do a little singing in the short film.
I've got the old time wrestling balloon.
The Ox still had it in him to command a presence on the screen. Whether he was delivering a devastating heart punch in the ring, sharing strange and exaggerated tales, or whipping up a batch of his famous chili, the Ox was one of a kind. His contributions to wrestling extended beyond his performances. He inspired and helped along many guys during their wrestling journeys. Unfortunately, he would pass away in 2014. And Ox Baker remains a beloved figure in the world of professional wrestling and pop culture. Whether you are looking at his comic books, watching one of his matches, or even finally getting your hands on an Ox Baker figure you have won for decades, Ox Baker is one of the most memorable personalities we just don't get enough of anymore. His life serves as a testament to the power of personality and the enduring appeal of those who stand out from the crowd. Ox Baker was, and always will be, a true character. I'm Mr. Hartgrave from Parts Unknown, and I want to thank you for sticking around until the end of this video. Please hit that like and subscribe button. We're trying to get to 100,000 subscribers on this channel. We can only do it with your help. See you again next time.
Ox Baker, I've got the old got the old time. I got the old time. Below.